Hey everybody, how's it going? Cam's here with another video. I'm going to do a wee update because it strikes me that I didn't do an end of month one for October. So I just want to catch you up on what I'm reading, what I've been reading, what I'm going to be reading. And well, first of all, it's cold. Scotland's very cold now, so look at that. 2 degrees right now. It's probably going to freeze. Clear skies, so our house is cold, drafty, poorly insulated, so I'm sitting in clothes to keep myself warm, which is fine, you know. And today I've been reading quite a bit. This book here, The Years of Rice and Salt by Kim Stanley Robinson, which is a reread, and this is an old paperback. What I'm going to show you now is a beautiful hardback edition that I would like to thank Ross and Laura for sending me from Hardy's Books, because I saw it on the shelf and commented on a video and said, "Whoa, I love that book." And Ross kindly said to me this year, "Would you like it?" because he's trying to make space on his shelves. So thank you so much for sending it. This is a book I read at the end of last year. I started my channel in February this year, so that was 2 months after finishing the book, and I thought that's close enough to having finished it that I should be able to do a review. So I did, and it was rubbish. It soon came to light that I hadn't understood it properly. It's a complex novel. It's a sci-fi alternate history novel. Kim Stanley Robinson writes various speculative fiction, sci-fi novels. So yeah, I guess you would call this speculative fiction maybe rather than sci-fi. Although, you know, genre boundaries, who really knows? It's 10 different stories which are connected by reincarnation. So the characters in each of the stories appear in different characters. And we can follow them because they have the same letters in their names. They start with the same initials. So right now, at the chapter, or the book rather, about Samarkand. And it's to do with technology and physics and Aristotle and the progress of technology. And this is what happens when the Black Death comes along and wipes out 99% of Europe. And so Christianity in Western Europe doesn't grow to become a dominant power. Rather, we have Islam and we have India. The Hindus and the Muslims growing to fill that space. So it's a fascinating novel, and I'm really enjoying it. It's good to have this, and I've also got the audiobook, which I'm reading alongside, or listening to alongside, the book in my hand. I'll just tell you who narrates it, because he does a really good job. And I've just opened the podcast app. I always do that, because Audible and Overcast are both orange. So that's annoying. It's narrated by, I should have looked this up before, shouldn't I? Bronson Pinchot, or Pinchot, I don't know how you pronounce that. It's very good. So that's what I've been reading, and I'm probably going to keep going right through the weekend, because I don't have a trip this weekend. So I should have a good weekend clear to blast through more of this. I want to get it read because I've got a lot on my plate that I want to get to. So, other than that, yesterday I finished the second book of the Tawny Man trilogy, The Golden Fool, the first of which I read last month and I haven't reported on, Fool's Errand. This is the first time I've read these. If you don't know, I was planning to read A Realm of the Elderlings novel every month, starting with the first of the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, back in whenever it was, and I kept it going through the Farseer trilogy, 1, 2, 3, through the live ships, 1, 2, 3, and then I basically took a month off. I fell behind for a month, which is okay, you know. I'm not going to give myself a hard time for that. So I picked it back up with Fool's Errand, and once again, listening to the audiobook at the same time as I've got the physical book in my hand. And then I'm well enough into the story so that if I'm driving, I can listen to the audiobook and not miss too much. Because that's a problem I have now. As I've got older, I found that listening to a brand new audiobook for the first time, even if I'm not, if I'm concentrating on it, my mind still wanders, and that's a problem. So I like to have both, and that helps me to get into it. And now that I'm into the trilogy, then I should probably be all right with the next one. But let me just tell you the narrator of this, because it's one of the best narrators I've ever heard, Nick Taylor. There's a character in these books called Thick, who is described as a half-wit, so that's not my term, that's what he's described as. Neurodiverse, and the way that Hobb has written that character is incredible, really incredible. The relationships that we have with all the characters, it's better, I think, than any of the first two trilogies. I think our writing has improved a lot, which I suppose you would expect. As one writes more, one gets better. Fool's Errand didn't blow me away, not going to lie. I found the character of Prince Dutiful to be a bit annoying, and I found Fitz's new persona, Tom Badgerlock, and the Fool's new persona, Lord Golden, to be a bit annoying. It changes the relationship between two of my favourite characters in a big way. Lord Golden in particular seems able to play the part of Lord Golden without really any reference back to his previous character. He inhabits the role. Whereas with Fitz is still Fitz. Fitz is the POV character. So we get a lot of Fitz, and we know that Tom Badgerlock's just a persona that he's occupying. But Fitz is still Fitz, whereas Lord Golden is sometimes reverts back to the Fool. Mainly he's Lord Golden, and I found it kind of weird. And as I said, Prince Dutiful and Sybil Brasinga, another character who is witted. He has the wit, although now we're calling it old blood rather than wit. And I found him a bit annoying as well. But in The Golden Fool, in the second in the trilogy, the characters really come to life in a good way. And I found myself warming to all of them. And even Sybil Brasinga becomes a much bigger character in the story. And the Fool and the relationship that we have with him and Fitz gets deeper, and I don't want to spoil any of it, but it's a very moving relationship, you know, sort of in and out, and it's really, really well done. And then we get the character of Chade, whom you'll know if you've read the Farseer trilogy. He's the king's brother in the Farseer trilogy, and he was involved in spying, basically, plotting behind the scenes, like Lord Varys, I guess, if you've read Game of Thrones, a bit like that. So he's got his, not little birds, but he's got fingers and pies, and he knows what's going on, and he can sneak about Buckkeep through his secret passageways and all of that. His role changes quite a bit in this trilogy, becomes very interesting. So, and also the magic systems. We've got the skill and we've got the wit. These two magic systems, particularly the skill, they evolve. We get more information about how these magic systems connect everybody, connect upwards to source or higher power or whatever you want to call it, universe. And this is a big part of the attraction for me of these books, particularly with the Farseer trilogy, how Hobb was able to awaken in me something that I've talked about in another video, so I don't need to do any more here. Just search for my video on the magic systems in the Farseer trilogy. And we get a beautiful bringing together of the Farseer trilogy and the Live Ship Traders trilogy. there's a crossover happens here. I'll say no more, but it was so satisfying. I was like, oh, and I had to write to my friend Mare, who I know has read this, because she'd alluded to one of the characters whose name I won't mention when I had a discussion with her at some point. And I had to write to her and say, look, I need someone to talk to about this. I don't have anyone to talk to. This is just like, whoa. So, yeah, finished it yesterday. Absolute banger of a book. I'll keep the third one till next month because, as I said, I'm busy. Years of Rice and Salt, plus other things. So, what else? Right. I have a set here of books that I read in my childhood. The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper. And I've probably showed them out of order there. Maybe not though, actually. No, I think I did show them in order. So these are books that I read as a kid. I've got a very strong memory of reading this one in particular, The Dark is Rising, which gives its name to the sequence, The Dark is Rising sequence. The first of them was written in 1965. This one was written much later, 1975, I think. 73, 75. Can't remember exactly, but I read it in the mid-80s. And I've got strong memories of sitting in my English class at high school. It's always winter in my mind. It's always dark outside, rainy and dark, and windy probably. We've got fluorescent lights, big high ceilings in an old sandstone building that's no longer there. And a feeling of sitting in a warm room, steamed up windows, people in jackets and warm jumpers, school uniform, steamed up windows, big cast iron radiators. It's a whole vibe I've got in my mind. And teenage hormones. I mean, 14, 15, like, or maybe younger, 13. You know what I'm talking about. So that's what I have in my mind. And my English teacher used to ask us to have reading sessions when he wanted a skive, which is a Scots word for to do not very much and just chill. So I remember reading The Dark is Rising in that particular classroom, and this is a very wintry book. It's a Christmassy book. It's set Christmas time, New Year, round about when the main character Will has his 11th birthday and he becomes an old one. So this is a fantasy book with strong wintry Christmassy vibes. Young adults, probably younger even than young adult, whatever that's called. Children's literature, I would call it. Middle grade, I think the Americans call it. Whatever you want to call it, that's the vibe. So last month I read the first one, which is very different from this one. First one's set in Cornwall and doesn't have winter vibes, it's more summer vibes. And it's a group of kids that go on holiday to Cornwall and they discover an old map in a secret room in the house where they're staying, and they start to follow the map and it becomes a grail quest. And the baddies are after the grail and the kids have to try and get the grail first, and it's a bit like Scooby-Doo, It's fun, enjoyable, not as dark as The Dark is Rising. I believe in the third one, which I don't remember at all, which is Greenwich, the characters all come together. So I would like at least to read Greenwich this month and possibly even go on to the Grey King, book 4, and see where the story goes, because I don't remember. It's just The Dark is Rising is the only one I remember. So these books here I bought from a local seller. I tried to buy them online, World of Books and Abe, and ordered the ones I thought had the covers I wanted, which are these ones, and they sent random ones with different covers. So then I found a local seller and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Someone I actually know who lives on the same island as me had the full set for sale. So yeah, naturally I got in touch and went round and had a good chat with her and got the full set from her. So that was a result. And the reason I was inspired to get them is because I'd like to do a video at some point on my favourite childhood books, which leads me to another set of books which I read at school. The Book of Three, The Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander. So the second of the set is The Black Cauldron, which you may remember became the title of the Disney film, which I would urge you at all costs to avoid. Castle of Lur, the third one. The High King. And Taran Wanderer. So starting with the Book of Three, this is probably the book that's responsible for my love of fantasy. Read it in primary 6 with Mrs. Welsh at Kincaid's Primary School. So I would have been, let me think, 11, 10, 9, 8 or 9 when we read this for the first time in English, not English class, primary class. And I loved it. The character of the Horned King, who you can see there in the middle. Character of Gurgi, who says things like munchings and crunchings. This is Taran sitting on Hen Wen, who is the oracular pig. How the hell do I remember all those character names when I can barely remember the Years of Rice and Salt 2 months after finishing it? Very formative time in my life, the Book of Three. So I'm looking forward to reading them again as an adult, just to get the vibes of them. I did read them all as a kid. I remember really the first two, The Black Cauldron, the Book of Three. So look for videos on these coming soon, and then there will be others from my childhood that I've got in mind that I can show you at the time. I won't go into that right now. Also on my list is The White Guard by Bulgakov, which I've been reading now for, I think, 2 months, and I'm at page 26. What's going on with that? Yeah, good question. I'm just not getting through it. So this is Michael Glennie translation. This is a book I've had on my shelf since I was at uni in first year, which means I've had this book since 1993. I've never read it. And because I recently read, I've read a lot of books about Russian history and politics and the revolution. And because of that, having just finished particularly Orlando Fige's book on the Russian Revolution, it got me excited to read a book that's set around that time in Ukraine, which this is. It's all about the Whites and the Reds, which is the civil war in Russia that kicked off after the 1917 revolutions. And it's just fascinating. So I really want to read this historical fiction novel, and I'm just not getting to it. And I know why. Well, I tell you. It's because I've got it in Russian as well, and I wanted to tandem read it. And that's why I got as far as page 26, which, is actually an achievement, because my Russian is so rusty and slow and poor that it's putting me off picking it up, because I feel that I should be reading the Russian as well, and I'm just not. Same thing happened with Crime and Punishment, which I'm also reading now for my Substack. Just published another essay this afternoon. I started listening to the audiobook alongside reading translation. Fell off it after a few chapters. And the same with War and Peace, which I'm reading as part of Simon Hazel's read-along over in his Substack Footnotes and Tangents. We've just started the last book, so we're reading a chapter a day through the year. I picked it up late, but caught up quite quickly. Chapters are really short in War and Peace, by the way. He is running it again next year, so if you want to follow it, I highly, highly recommend that you do, because his Substack posts are excellent. Really, really good, and the community he's built, superb. Which got me thinking, if I get a Russian copy of the physical text, I could read a chapter a day. Do you think? Might be a good way of getting back into it, as I said, because the chapters are so short. So that's all that. Have I got my Confucius book handy? I should have had it out. I'll just check my backpack here, because I was travelling and I took it with me. Yes, I do. I didn't read any of it when I was travelling. And this is Confucius the Analects, which is part of my Substack read-along, following Ted Joyce's Humanities list. I read the Odyssey last month, and I read it twice because, well, 2 different editions. Loved that book. Supposed to be reading the Analects, and where are we at now? 20th of November. I've got 10 days, 11 days to read this. What's going on? Why am I not picking it up? I don't know. I've got no one saying to me, "Hoi, what's going on, Cams?" I don't have enough followers on my Substack to be saying, "Why aren't we reading the Analects?" So maybe that's it. I don't know. Is it ADHD? Is it discipline? Is it... I don't know. I'm not picking it up, and I feel bad about it because I've kind of told people that's what we're doing. It could still happen, but it seems like a lot of pages to read in 10 days, doesn't it? Do you want me to do it? Do you want to join me with it? Shall we do it together and blast through it? I mean, Ted Joy expected us to read the whole thing in 1 week, because his whole vibe was, let's set this into 52 weeks. So 10 days, it's doable. Let me know if you think I should get on it. So that's really all I've got going on right now. That's a quick catch up for you. I'm having a good time with the books. Not making as much content as I would like, but content does kind of get in the way of reading, doesn't it? Do you find that? The other thing I haven't mentioned, of course, is my Akhmatova, Anna Akhmatova poetry, which I had started recording bilingual videos, reading out poems in Russian and in English. I think I did 3 and then fell off it, so that's something I'd like to pick back up again, just for me, because I want to get into Akhmatova poetry a little bit deeper. And that also comes in the back of having read an Orlando Figes book, Natasha's Dance, which may well be the book of the year. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the year now, so I should start looking for contenders for that. It could also be The Golden Fool, if I'm honest. Or I could have a book of the year fiction and a book of the year non-fiction. Then I could cover both bases. Ha-ha! You see? So that's a wee catch up, just to let you all know what I've been reading and what I am reading and what's going on with my bookish life, such as it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again in the next video. Bye.